Good morning, all, and welcome for the next lecture of Hydrology and Water Resources Engineering. Today, we are going to end up this unit that is soil and crops. Okay, so mainly today we are going to focus on the remaining part of the syllabus, which used to be or which is concerned with the various components or ingredients of the soil. Those are harmful for the crops, that is a harmful components in a soil that is remain from our side, and texture and physical structure of the soil that is also remain from our side, and preparation of the soil for the irrigation. Okay, along with that, crop seasons in Maharashtra and India, those parts were remain from the discussion part. So today we'll discuss them and we'll finish up with this unit. Okay, so I would like to go for directly that part which is remained. I hope so. Whatever the part which you have covered, that understood, and the assignments those were given to you, that has been cleared by you. Okay, so we'll start now discussing about the remaining parameters. So soil structure firstly we'll go for. So what does it mean about a structure and texture? So mainly those two parts are number of the times those two are mostly confusing one. It is what does it mean about the structure and what does it mean about the texture. Soil structure is nothing but the arrangement of the particles. Means whenever we used to say that there is a group of a people or a group of say animals or the birds we used to talk about, then their arrangement in a they used to arrange themselves in a particular manner. That arrangement is considered as a structure. So similarly here also, that arrangement of the soil particles in various forms decides the structure of that soil. Okay, or structure we can say. Whereas soil's texture is nothing but the proportion of the particles. It means that if you have an combination of different animals, that is a structure, okay, of different animals, but the proportion of each and every type of the animal is nothing but the uh, texture we can say. So that is an idea, a parallel example I had taken over here in. So whenever we are talking about a structure of a soil, then it means about the proportion of the particles. Means suppose that we have a soil mixture, or we have in a soil but it is to have a different particle sizes. Suppose that the particle size is of a 1 millimeter, 10 millimeters, 5 millimeters, 7 millimeters, or 1 to 10 millimeter particle size is therein, as an example I have taken over here in. Then the here that a texture defines the proportion of the 1 millimeter diameter particles. Then various then 2 millimeter diameters, 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters likewise. ओके, सो दॅट इज डिफाईन्स द सॉइल टेक्स्चर. बऱ्याच वेळा आपण म्हणतो बघा की चपाती किंवा भाकरी करण्या अगोदर आपण ते पीठ जे घेतो ते आपण चाळून घेतो. मीन्स वाय व्हॉट वी यूज टू डू, वी यूज टू हॅव वी यूज टू ट्राय टू कलेक्ट द पार्टिकल्स दोज आर हॅव्हिंग अ सो स्मॉल पार्टिकल साइज, or they are having the proper dimension. It means that they are also, we are going to we used to differentiate the texture. Number of the times we used to say that it is an also in a powdered form, it's an is having a somewhat roughness. Likewise, it means whenever the larger dimension particles used to exist, then in that case we used to say that this is having an roughness, more roughness. It means the whatever the proportion of the particles used to exist in the particular soil, then we can say that that is nothing but the soil texture, or the proportion of the different particles is nothing but the texture. Okay, then the next one is the harmful components in a soil, or those are also called as elements. Those are not that much essential for the growth of the plants. On the other hand, if they exist in the soil, they are becomes as an, or they behaves as an harmful components for the growth of the plants. Okay, so what are those components? Those we are going to discuss now one by one. The first one, that is a sodium, silicon, cobalt, titanium, and nickel. They are appears in the plants and are useful for the growth of the few plants. Means here we are going to discuss simultaneously the components. Those are essential and those are non-essential, isn't it? Or those are essential but not that much essential we can say. It means that if you consider the first group, that is a sodium, silicon, cobalt, titanium, and nickel, they appears in the plants, but they are useful for the growth of a few plants only, isn't it? Means they are not that much useful for all the plants. They are useful only for the few variety or a few types of the crops only. Then the second group is a chlorine, iodine, cobalt, and sodium. They are essential for man and animals. Means the whatever the components those are there in, that is a chlorine, iodine, cobalt, which you have discussed in the previous one, and the sodium, they are essentially required for the uh, chain of the, what we can say that काय म्हणतो आपण त्यांना ती, I've forgotten the name, or the uh, what we can say that animals or the other plants or the other crops, those are getting that as a food. म्हणजे ज्या प्लांट्स वरती इतर दुसऱ्या प्लांट्स किंवा अॅनिमल्स डिपेंड असतात त्यांच्यासाठी, म्हणजे फूड चेन मधला, एक्झॅक्टली हा फूड चेन मधला जी नेक्स्ट जो एलिमेंट येतो तो म्हणजे कोण आहे, तर प्लांट वरती डिपेंड असणारा बऱ्याच वेळा आपण मॅन आणि अॅनिमल्स असतात. For those or for them, those elements, that is chlorine, iodine, cobalt, and sodium, are essentially required. Then next one, that is selenium, lead, then thallium, arsenic, then molybdenum, and fluorine are hazards for the animals and the plants. The animals or the group of the next element of the chain of the food, they are non-essential, or if they exist, those elements used to exist in the crops, they are hazardous for the animals those are eating them. The next one is the toxicity. If you consider, then the toxic elements, those are not essentially, but they are toxic to the plants. Those are nothing but the sodium, chlorine, fluoride, aluminum, magnesium, and chlorine. If their proportion is more than that of requirement, then they behave as a toxicity or toxic to the plants. Whereas the next group, which is essential for the stimulating the growth of the plants, those are nothing but the lithium, tin, radium, then beryllium, mercury, then silver and bromine. Those are essential for the stimulating the growth of the plants, isn't it? Then the next one, that is for the next part, that is we can say that is a preparation of the soil for irrigation. This is about elements those are essentially required for the growth of the plant, and those are essentially required for the animals those are eating those plants, and the elements those are toxic to the plants. That part we have discussed. Now we are going to discuss about the methods, or the method which is used, or the steps rather, those are essentially required to be adapted for the preparation of the soil for the irrigation. It means uh, after the sowing the crop in the soil, we need to prepare the soil for the irrigation, isn't it? Or for making the soil well prepared for the irrigation, we must start or must adapt the proper tillage operation, starting from the first operation, that is plowing. म्हणजे जर का आपल्याला ज्या शेतीवरती आपण पेरणी करणार आहे, जिथं आपण क्रॉप्स घेणार आहे, त्याच्यामध्ये व्यवस्थितरित्या इरिगेशन करायचं असेल किंवा इरिगेशन करावं लागणार असेल, तर त्या केसमध्ये ती सॉइल प्रिपेअर करताना आपल्याला स्टार्टिंग फेज पासूनच, म्हणजे जे आपण कल्टिवेशन ऑपरेशन सुरू करतो त्या स्टार्टिंगचे फेज म्हणजे प्लॉईंग, आपण त्याला नांगरणी म्हणतो, नांगरणी करण्यापासूनच आपल्याला प्रॉपररित्या ह्या सर्वच्या सर्व गोष्टी अडॉप्ट कराव्या लागतात. Okay, so that thing we want to those things we want to discuss, we are going to discuss now here. So first, arbitrarily I will go for firstly, and then we'll go for in the details. That is after sowing, if you want to go for, म्हणजे आपण पेरणी केल्यानंतर जर का आपण बघितलं तर त्या केसमध्ये रिमूव्हिंग ऑफ द बुशेस, म्हणजे जर का आपण पेरणी करणार असेल किंवा प्लॉईंग केलेलं आहे आणि नंतर आपल्याला पेरणी करायची आहे, त्यावेळेस आपल्याला जे स्टार्टिंगचे किंवा अगोदर सुरुवातीलाच काय असतं की बऱ्याच वेळा फर्स्ट क्रॉप आपण जर का घेणार असेल तर त्यावेळेस तिथं बुशेस वगैरे असतात, म्हणजे झाडं झुडपं उगवलेली असतात. स्मॉल ट्रीज वी टू टॉक अबाउट, वी नीड टू रिमूव्ह देम फ्रॉम द सॉइल or from that particular land where we want to go for a sowing. That is the first operation, that is the removing of the bushes or the small plants or the weeds we can say. Then the next step is plowing or deploying, or before that if it required, then we used to go for a leveling. ओके, जर का खूप मोठा प्लॉट असेल आणि लेवलिंग केलेलं नसेल, मीन्स यू वांट टू गो फॉर अ सोइंग फॉर अ फर्स्ट टाइम ऑन अ सॉइल और अ barren land we can say. In that case, the first step is to removing of a bushes or the small plants and the small trees also we can say, those are unwanted trees we can say, those has been grown on the cultivable land. Then after the removing those small bushes and all these things, it requires to go for a leveling, so that the area on which we are going for a sowing, that will be irrigated by a gravity only, means the without having any additional force, that is a pumping and all those things. We want to go for a irrigation of that crop by a natural way, that is by gravity we can say. So in that case, it is required essentially to adapt a such type of the technique, that is we have to require to go for the leveling. After the leveling, we have to divide the whole plot into the number of small plots, means it is essentially required, or it is preferred to go for dividing the big plot into the, or if we have an say an 20 hectares of land and we want to go for irrigation of that, or you want to go for a sowing and irrigation, in that case it is a desire to divide that plot into the acres. Okay, acres and acres, so that it is a feasible to go for a irrigation of by a stepwise, means after 1 acre another acre, likewise we used to go for it is a dividing the plot in dividing whole plot into the number of plots. And the most essential step is that is a provision of a drainage. It means that if we are going for uncontrolled flooding, and in that case if it is going to lead to have an saturation of the soil, then in that case it is essentially required to go for draining that water, draining that extra water or additional water from that plot. So in that case it is required to go for a provision of a drainage. Okay, so now we'll discuss those things in details. Okay, so the preparation of a soil for the irrigation, the first one is the ploughing, means if you want to have if we are having a cultivated land, means you have taken a crop in a previous season and we want to go for a next season, crop of a next season. In that case, the first step which is required to be adapted, that is a ploughing, म्हणजे आपल्याला सुरुवातीला नांगरणी करावी लागते. मग नांगरणी करताना आपल्याला नांगरणी ही आपण बऱ्याच पद्धतीने करू शकतो, मीन्स डीप प्लॉइंग इज देअर शॅलो प्लॉइंग इज देअर अँड मीडियम प्लॉइंग इज देअर. Generally deep plowing is adapted before the onset of the monsoon, or before the start of the monsoon. म्हणजे उन्हाळ्यामध्ये जी नांगरणी केली जाते, that we used to go for a deep plowing. जनरली आपण उन्हाळ्यामध्ये जी प्लॉइंग केलं जातं ते साधारणतः डीप प्लॉइंग केलं जातं, म्हणजे जी काही खोलवरची जमीन असते, जी सॉइल असते ती बरोबर अपटेक केली जाते, आणि जे काही वरच्या लेअर मध्ये जे काही रूट्स वगैरे जे असतात, क्रॉपचे रूट्स असतील, प्रिव्हियस क्रॉपचे किंवा वीडचे रूट्स असतील, ते बरोबर डेप्थला जातात, खूप डेप्थला जातात, मीन्स दे डझंट गेट अ चान्स अँड दे अंडरगोज द डिकम्पोजिशन. Okay, so that is the idea, that is for a deploying. Then if after one crop, means suppose that in a monsoon season you have taken one crop and then you want to go for a next season, that is a rabi season. Kharif is considered as a monsoon and rabi is considered as a winter season. Then for that generally the farmer used to go for a shallow plowing, or number of the times he used to go for only a harrowing operation. म्हणजेच बऱ्याच वेळा शेतकरी काय करतो, तर फक्त कुळवणी करून घेतो आणि नंतर नेक्स्ट क्रॉप घेतो. So likewise, means as per the requirement we have to adapt the plowing operation or the harrowing operation, which is essentially required there. Then after the plowing we need to go for a harrowing. Why to go for a harrowing? Because in a plowing operation, म्हणजे ज्यावेळेस आपण नांगरणी करतो त्यावेळेस काय होतं की मोठमोठे क्लॉट्स तयार होतात. क्लॉट्स म्हणजे आपण त्यांना ढेकळ म्हणतो. मग हे जे मातीचे किंवा सॉइलचे जे क्लॉट्स तयार होतात, ते मोठे क्लॉट्स जर का तयार झाले तर त्या केसमध्ये आपण डिरेक्टली आपण सोविंग करू शकत नाहीये, बिकॉज द सोविंग ऑपरेशन नीड्स टू गो फॉर मिनिमम फॉर अ शॉलो डेप्थ, means up to hardly a 5 to 6 centimeters, hardly I'm talking about for the maize and all those things, 5 to 6 centimeters depth, that must be that is more than requirement for the सीड्स. म्हणजे जास्तीत जास्त आपण 5 ते 6 सेंटीमीटर एवढा डेप्थ पर्यंतच फक्त ते सीड्स आपण सोईंग करतो, म्हणजे जमिनीमध्ये आपण ते हे करतो, पेरणी करतो. पण जर का आपल्याकडे जर का क्रॉप्स व्हेजिटेबल्स असतील, इन दॅट केस इट्स रिक्वायर्ड टू गो फॉर हार्डली 5 मिलीमीटर्स, म्हणजे 5 मिलीमीटरच्या खाली आपण ते क्रॉपचे सीड सोईंग करत नाहीये. इट मीन्स दॅट इफ यू वांट टू हॅव अ सोईंग अप टू फॉर सो स्मॉल डेप्थ, in that case if such clots is to exist, then it is essentially required to break them. जर का असे हे क्लॉट्स असतील ढेकळ मातीचे म्हणजे ढेकळ असतील तर ते आपल्याला ब्रेक करणं गरजेचं राहतं. ते ब्रेकिंग करण्याचं जे ऑपरेशन आहे दॅट इज कन्सिडर्ड ॲज अन हॅरोइंग. आपण त्याला बऱ्याच वेळा काही जण त्याला वखरणी म्हणतात, काही ठिकाणी त्याला कुळवणी म्हटलं जातं. ओके, या पद्धतीने आपल्याला ते ऑपरेशन करावं लागतं. That is the harrowing we used to talk about. Okay, then after the harrowing we have to go for a sowing. म्हणजे आपण आता कुळवणी केली. आफ्टर दॅट मीन्स कुळवणी केली म्हणजे काय केलं आपण की जे काही क्लॉट्स होते ते पूर्णपणे ब्रेक केले. Soil we have prepared now. Well prepared soil is therein. Now no clots are existing. Then we used to go for a sowing, either by a animal operated uh, instruments or by a machine operated, that is a tractor operated instruments. We used to go for a sowing operation. After sowing now we requires to go for removing the small bushes, in the sense number of the times what happens after the harrowing also, if the weeds is to therein, then those weeds is to be we used to find them on spread on the soil itself. म्हणजे जर का गवत जर का जास्त असेल तर त्या केसमध्ये हार्विंग जरी केलं आपण तरी सुद्धा काय होतं की बऱ्याच वेळा ते छोटे छोटे गवताचे तुकडे किंवा ते आपल्या जमिनीवरती पसरलेलं दिसतं. In that case, it is required to remove them. So that's why I have used the step as removing the bushes here. परंतु तर बऱ्याच वेळा शेतकरी काय करतो की इफ द सच टाइप ऑफ द काय म्हणतो आपण त्याला such type of the roots or the such type of the weeds used to exist, then he or she used to go for the application of the rotor. That is a tractor operated machine we can say. रोटरने काय होतं की soil upper surface used to get and also finished one we can say that as like an uh, well prepared soil, and those weeds or their stems we can talk about, they used to be get divided into the small particles. म्हणजे ज्यावेळेस आपण रोटर वापरतो, रोटर वापरल्यानंतर ना जे काही एक्झिस्टिंग असणारं गवत असतं ते गवत हे पूर्णपणे त्याचे छोटे छोटे तुकडे होतात, छोट्या छोट्या पार्ट मध्ये ब्रेक होतो आणि जे छोटे जे क्लॉट्स असतात ते क्लॉट्स पूर्णपणे ब्रेक होतात. इफ दॅट इज अडॅप्टेड इन्स्टेड ऑफ द हॅरोविंग, म्हणजे कुळवणी करण्याऐवजी फनाटी वापरण्याऐवजी जर का आपण रोटर वापरला, रोटर ब्लेड वापरला, तर त्या केसमध्ये वेल प्रिपेअर्ड सॉइल तयार होते. इन दॅट केस इट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड टू गो फॉर रिमूव्हिंग ऑफ द बुशेस ऑल्सो, because it used to break that in the small pieces, and if it is has been getting broken into small pieces, it is not required to go for removing them, because it undergoes the decomposition and it serves as an म्हणजे डिकम्पोज होऊन जातं पूर्णपणे ते आणि त्याचं खत तयार होतं. Okay, is acts as an manure. Then after that leveling and dividing into the plots, means after the sowing we have to go for a formation of a small bunch. Okay, आपण म्हणतो की सारा सोडला म्हणतो आपण. Likewise we have to go for a leveling, that is a small leveling. means बऱ्याच वेळा आपण जर का बुलक ऑपरेटेड इन्स्ट्रुमेंट्स असतील, म्हणजे जर का बैलाने आपण पेरणी केलेली असेल तर बऱ्याच वेळा शेतकरी काय करतो ते लेवल करून घेतो नंतर ना पाठीमागं, जेणेकरून व्हेरेवर दॅट harrows has been sorry those small furrows has been got formed. ज्यावेळेस आपली तिफन चालते त्या तिफणीने जर आपण पेरणी केलेली असेल तर पाठीमागं छोटे छोटे फरोज तयार होतात. ते फरोज आपल्याला ते पूर्णपणे लेवल करावे लागतात. अँड फॉर दॅट वी रिक्वायर टू गो फॉर अ लेवलिंग ऑपरेशन अँड डिवाइडिंग that whole plot of the acres into the small plots, that is dividing that or the preparing the what you can say, that is a small channels आपण म्हणू शकत नाही, आपण त्याला सारा सोडला म्हणतो बघा आपण. Likewise we have to prepare that. Okay, and then making the provision of the drainage, that is essentially required at the tail race, म्हणजे जो एंडचा पट्टा असणार, जो तो लोअर इलेव्हेशन असणार, at that points we required to provide trenches so that the extra water or additional water or surplus water will be get collected in those small trenches, that is drainages we can say. So this is those are the steps, those are essentially required to be adapt for the preparation that is before the for the preparation of the soil for the irrigation, that is prior to the irrigation. Those steps are essentially required to carry out. Now the next point is the crop seasons in Maharashtra and India. It is what are the main seasons in India and Maharashtra, and what are their time period, means from which date or which time, which month they used to start and at which month they used to end. So the first season is that is a Kharif or the monsoon season we used to talk about. And the Kharif season starts from the 1st June, that is the start of the monsoon, and it is to end at the October. generally up to the October, means from the June to October, that is a 5 month span, is considered to be as an Kharif season. Whereas the if you consider the crops, we are going to discuss in details, that is crops, those are taken into the Kharif season, Rabi season, hot weather season. So for a Rabi season, that is also called as a winter season. It is to start from the October and it is to or end at the March, means October, November, December, January, February, March, near about a 6 months duration, or somewhat less than that up to the February also we can say. But generally October to March, the Rabi season used to exist, and from the March onwards, that we used to experience, that is a start of the hot weather season, isn't it? So October to March, that is a winter season. It is also called as a Rabi season in the Maharashtra. And the Kharif season also, that is from the June to the October, isn't it? Then the hot weather season, that is a summer season, we used to consider generally in if we will talk about whole India, then we used to consider it as a hot weather season. That hot weather season is March to May. जनरली आपल्याकडे काय म्हटलं जातं की शिमगा आला की तिथून पुढे म्हणजे होळी आपण म्हणतो त्याला, तिथून पुढे काय असतं तर हॉट वेदर सीझन सुरू होतो. सो जनरली दोज आर द कन्सिडरेशन्स दैट शिमगा अँड ऑल दोज थिंग्स आर ऍज पर द फार्मर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्ह्यू. शेतकऱ्याच्या दृष्टिकोनातून ह्या पद्धतीने डिसाईड केलं जातं. And technically that they are from the months, that is March to the May, that is hot weather. Rabi season October to March, and Kharif season June to October. Then this is a data for the principal crops of India and the seasons in which they are grown and their average delta and duty. Average delta and duty, that is essentially required in the solving the numericals that we have discussed in the previous part in details. So if you consider the first part, that is a part A, I have shown over here, and I have taken this from the book itself. It is for the Kharif crops. Now the Kharif is, we are knowing, that is in a rainy season, that is a monsoon season itself. So crops are rice. We are knowing that the rice is to require the high quantity of the water. So generally that rice is grown in the Kharif season. Then next is a transplanted rice. म्हणजे आपण बऱ्याच वेळा काय करतो की पेरणी केली जाते आणि काही ठिकाणी काय केलं जातं की पहिल्यांदा त्याचं रोप तयार केलं जातं आणि नंतर ते ट्रान्सप्लांट केलं जातं. मीन्स वी यूज टू प्रिपेअर द plants and then used to go for a transplanting. Then sowing time, that is generally June to July. Then for transplanted rice, that is a July. Maize, maca, this is a general crop which is grown in Maharashtra, and it is a perennial crop we used to talk about. Generally nowadays the farmer is taking the maize in all the seasons. But if you talk about the maize in a Kharif season, then it is to be there in from the June, and generally it is harvested in the month of the October. Means June, July, September, June, July, August, September, October. That is near about 4 to 5 months crop is there in. And for the rice, it is a 6 month crop, that is from the July to the November, that is July, August, September, October, and November, 5 months crop we can say. Then early rice, that is which has been shown in the June to July, it is getting harvested into the September to October. Then jawar, that is a great millet, it is an scientific name for that. Bajra and jawar also is to go for in a Kharif season. Jawar in our case is to go for in a Rabi season also. If you consider the Mangalveda in the Maharashtra, then nowadays they are going for the starting for the sowing of the jawar. Okay, but means a place to place it is to vary. But if you consider an Kharif, then in that case the jawar and bajra, they are generally sown in the month of uh, from the month of the June to July for the jawar, and for bajra it is from the July to August. Generally the bajra is an rain-fed crop we can say. That is most of the times it is not irrigated. It used to get harvest on the uh, rainfall itself. Okay, then arar is there, pulses are there, that is moong, moth, urd, udit is there, then groundnut, then तीळ is there. Groundnut means शेंगा आपण म्हणतो त्यांना, भुईमूग म्हणतो. त्याचबरोबर मटकी असते, चवळी असते. Those crops are generally sown in the month of June to July, and they are harvested in the month of September to October, isn't it? Also along with that, tur also is to go for til, groundnut, etc. is to go for. Generally groundnut is sown in the month of the May itself, isn't it? So under the Kharif we are considering, because most of the time period, uh, lifespan we can say of the groundnut used to exist in the Kharif season. Though we are sowing it is in May, that's why it is considered as a Kharif crop. Okay, and it is getting harvested into the month of November to December. It depends on the variety, which variety we are sowing for. Then the next crop is a Rabi crop. So Rabi crops are generally those are grown in the winter season. That is a wheat, गहू आपल्या सर्वांना माहिती आहे. हिवाळ्यामध्ये गव्हाची शेती केली जाते because this crop generally requires a cold environment. So that's why generally it is grown in the October to November only, because it's a early phase, that is a growing phase we can say, that is to require an cold weather. So that's why in the October to November month we used to go for a sowing of the wheat. Then gram is there, barley is there, pea is there, mustard is there, potato is there, tobacco is there. Those crops are generally sown in the month of October. Okay, so means from the October to the March we can say generally this Rabi season used to exist. Okay, then the 8 month crops, for example cotton, आपण कापसाची शेती म्हणतो, that is sown in the Kharif and it is getting harvested in the month of the month of the December to January, because this cotton used to require a longer time period to get an दॅट हार्वेस्टिंग फेज. म्हणजे कापूस लावल्यानंतर सोईंग केल्यापासून आपण ज्यावेळेस आपण त्याची पेरणी करतो त्यानंतर त्याला कापूस येईपर्यंत जो टाइम पिरियड राहतो, इट रिक्वायर्स जनरली अबाउट 7 to 8 months. That's why it is considered as an 8 month crop. And if you consider the perennial crops, जसं मी पाठीमागे म्हटलं की सध्याला फार्मर यूज टू गो फॉर मेज, मका आपण म्हणतो मेज, इन ऑल द सीझन्स, because for that maize is used as an fodder. Its leaves and plants are used as an fodder for the animals. म्हणजे आपण जनावरांसाठी जे त्याचा उपयोग करतो तो म्हणजे मोस्टली युज्ड फॉर द ॲज अन फॉडर, मीन्स फूड फॉर द animals. Okay, then generally the perennial crop which is sugar cane, म्हणजे ज्याला 12 महिने लागतात हार्वेस्टिंगला येण्यासाठी, दॅट इज अ शुगर केन. मग बऱ्याच वेळा याची सोईंग आपण फेब्रुवारी मार्च मध्ये करतो, किंवा आता सध्या जून जुलै मध्ये करतात. ऍज पर द रिक्वायरमेंट द फार्मर इज नाउ adopting that technique. But generally if you consider, if for a perennial crop sugarcane, it is generally sowing in the month of February March, it is getting harvested into the December to March. Okay, in the next year, that is the, it's a average delta. That is, a delta is nothing but the depth required for the harvesting of the crop. It is the highest one we are observing here for the rice, that is a 1250, that is for a transplanted rice. And for the early rice, we used to require to have an average delta of 900 millimeters. Here it has been shown in the unit. Okay, so this is all about the soils and the crops, and here we have discussed now the various crop seasons in Maharashtra and India, and the crops those are grown in those particular seasons. Okay, this is all about and this unit. Okay, now we will start for the next unit herein. Okay.